everything they do it for you. That is the Crash Jones Band with our theme song, Diamonds Ain't Forever. This is episode 7, I think. If the number on this video is not 7, then I'm wrong. But we're recording these in advance. Episode 7 of the Up and In Dynasty League podcast. And at long last, we have been trying to schedule this for like a month, or maybe it's been longer than that. Nathan Warren from Australia. Please pronounce the name of the town in which you live, Nathan, so I get it right.
The town I live the name is Geelong or Geelong. So
Geelong,
being
okay.
Australian, and we'll probably get into this, we just cut lots of things short. So Geelong is where I live. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad you said it first because I would have got it wrong. I thought you said before, and this goes back a while, that it was Geelong. So I like Geelong better.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I could make a meet the parents joke here, but I'm not going to do that. So
yeah.
I was just trying to get it right. You know, it's fascinating. So you're on the, what is it? The West Coast?
We're sort of the southeast coast of Australia. So Melbourne's our closest big city. So we're about an hour southwest of Melbourne.
Right.
So down the bottom.
You know, I mean, most Americans probably could maybe find Australia on a globe. Maybe. I don't know. But from there, they'd be lost. I mean, I could find Sydney probably. But so otherwise I'd need some more dots. So, I mean, and I pride myself on geography. So, and I still it's
we're a little bit the arse end of the world. That's for sure.
Yeah. When I went to Europe when I had my quarter life crisis a long time ago, I spent 2 months backpacking through Western Europe, and I live in Ohio now. I was living in Ohio then as well. In between, I spent a while in Oregon and so on. But I would try to tell people, Europeans that I met, that I was from Ohio, and they know not a single one who had not lived in the United States or something had any idea. You know, they knew California, they knew New York, Florida. You know, Germans loved Florida, right? So, and everything else is just kind of the middle.
I've got no doubt that any Aussies, if you said I'm from Ohio, well, they'd have trouble picking it out on the map. That's for sure.
I mean, it's by Canada is really the only thing I could say that would be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that would just confuse the shit out of everyone here.
Yeah, right. I mean, Canada's pretty big. It's hard to miss.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a jaunty hat on top of the. Okay, well, I've made fun of the America's hat thing before. Okay, so anyway, here you are. You are 14 hours ahead of me, or is it 16 hours?
I think it depends on daylight savings times and things like that, but it's somewhere around there. Yeah, about 14 hours. So it's just after. Well, it's about 11:30 in the morning here. So for you, it's about 9:30. So
9:30.
Yeah. What's that?
So it's 14 hours. I was thinking 16 before. So yeah, I'm on Eastern time in the United States, and so 14 hours. We have definitely reacted. Those of us in the league, I think everybody else is on some form of U.S. time. I mean, we have obviously have Juan in Mexico, but he's on, I think it's Mountain or Central time, which is an hour or two before me. And we used to have a gentleman in the UK, so he was a few hours ahead, but not 14. I think it's fascinating that you're already in tomorrow. That is. I just love that.
The 1st of July.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think. I'm in finance for a job. You're in accounting, am I right?
I work in a bank. Yeah. So
right. So
I'm the retail manager of a bank. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So the fiscal year, I'm on one side of the fiscal year, at least.
Yeah.
With the way I don't know if you do July 1 to June 30, most.
Yeah.
I'm in this fiscal year. You're in next fiscal year. That is, I mean, if I had my glasses on, I would push them up at this point and giggle. So.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy fiscal New Year. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I've had a crazy week at work trying to get all the business into this year. So, you know, now, and tomorrow is next year. And so
nothing changes.
Not really. I mean, it does on paper, but it doesn't in real life, you know? So,
yeah, exactly.
So so you're 14 hours ahead. So, you know, when you're playing fantasy baseball where you have, you know, auctions and all those sorts of things, you have had to get pretty good at using a world clock to figure out, when we post the times, they tend to be kind of, well, they tend not to be your time. So you have to constantly do the math. And I've always been impressed by that, by your ability to figure out what time you have to have your bid in by.
Yeah, I don't know that I do it that well, to be honest, but it's usually just, hey, wake up in the morning, what's happened overnight for me. So, you know, and I feel bad because quite often, especially in the Discord era, I'll wake up, I'll open up Discord and go, man, there's been some massive conversation going on. And, you know, there'll be 50 or 60 unread comments. And I just sit there and I go, oh, I've missed this whole thing. Like,
oh, yeah.
You know, not that I have probably any great input into it, but like you sort of read through it later on and you go, oh yeah, okay, I get that. And I get that. And oh yeah, no, I disagree with that. But then by then everyone else has moved on. It's too late. So, so yeah, that's always funny to sort of see what's happened in a 8 to 10 hour window, when you sort of have been asleep and nothing's happened.
Yeah. Now I will say, as commissioner, like for example, we're about to, I told Justin, who is our resident owner who wants to kind of tinker with the rules. He's sort of the leader of that. I mean, I've been that person in the past, but it's him now. Now that I am the establishment, right? I am against the change because that's what you do, right? Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. But I asked him, I said, you know, hey, some of these rule tweaks you're talking about, you know, would you write these up and kind of put them in these sort of bite-sized chunks so we can, you know, discuss some stuff. And I will make sure, like, we're not in any big hurry. We're going to make sure you get a chance, you know, to say, no, that's stupid. Let's do this or whatever. And we're not going to ignore anyone. We're going to give people a chance to comment. It's pretty important. I mean, you know, this is supposed to be fun. Like if everybody's doing whatever and ignoring you and like stuff doesn't make any sense, you lose interest and you find other things to do with your time, you know? I mean, so and I think that's been one of the keys to us sticking around for all this time, you know, is kind of, I mean, rule changes at least are democratic. Not everything else is, but I mean, you know, just the kind of small d democratic. You know, we vote on things and it's, you know, so that kind of stuff's important. People need to feel like, especially if you've been around since the beginning, like you have, you know, you want to feel like a piece of it is yours. You know, you own it.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, look, but to be honest, I'm just happy that I'm like accepted to be in it. Like I can certainly see the point of view where people would say, oh shit, man, this guy is just, you know, pain in the ass to deal with because he's out of the time zones or whatever it might be. So, you know, I'm not going to be a massive agitator in any of this, I guess, because, you know, I figure that there's lots smarter people than me who are making sure that this thing keeps running. And to this point, they've done an amazing job. Like you know, as much as it takes a little bit of effort for me to try and maintain and stay on top of things. And look, I miss things at times, and I'll miss, you know, voting windows or nominating windows or whatever it might be. But, you know, that's just part of me, I guess, being in the league. And it's just something that, you know, it doesn't really ruin my day. You know, it's just fun to be involved, and it's fun to see how my collection of, at times, very ordinary baseball players are actually going to affect how my team goes.
Yeah, I've noticed. I don't know if this is I don't know if this was a conscious shift in your strategy, or what, but it seems like this past year specifically, maybe it was last year too, but this year especially, it seems like you've tried to kind of collect almost everybody you can get your mitts on, and try to get like a long list of, and get a lot of depth. And we have some owners who like that. I used to be one of those. I started, I started to get to the point where it was driving me crazy to make all the decisions every day, play this pretty good guy or this pretty good guy. And then the other pretty good guy that I sat down would hit the home run, But we have a couple other teams to do that.
Yeah, I try and I guess I'm not very scientific. So the more players I've got at the start of the year, the better for me. Because of that nominating and potentially missing out on players or whatever it might be. So I just try and get them, sounds bad, but I try and get as many average baseball players as I can and just hope that I can ride some hot streaks, or I can, jag. I think Cedric Mullins has been awesome for me this year.
I don't know if anybody had him on their list of breakout stars.
And I nominated him. I think it was this year.
That's right.
I nominated him.
I remember that name.
Hey? Yeah. It was early in the auction, or early in the auctioning. I threw him out there for $1. And sort of half expected that someone might go two, or a couple might go on top of it, and I was happy to walk away. But it's easy for me to say I was happy to walk away. Knowing me, I probably would have started bidding anyway. But so he's worked out to be awesome.
He's hitting what, 310, 320?
He's hitting over 300. He keeps.
I try not to look stuff up on this show.
He's doing okay. He's definitely been one of my better players this year, that's for sure. I think at the start of the year they said, and it's been reported a few times since then, that he stopped switch hitting. So that was sort of something that was reported early in the year, that he was going to stop hitting, and I can't even remember which hand. It might have been stop hitting right-handed or something, and just concentrate on one side of the plate. And it's worked out for him. It's been amazing. My team, the Reds, real life team, has had a couple of players do that. In fact, this year, our catcher, Tucker Barnhart, he was a switch hitter his entire pro career. He's now he might be 29 or 30 now. He's in the middle of his career, and he gave up hitting, I think it was right-handed. And he's been a pretty mediocre offensive player. Honestly, in fantasy baseball, he's no better than a part-time option because of his obviously he's better in real baseball. He has a Gold Glove and stuff. Not that a Gold Glove makes you a great fielder, but it's usually a pretty good indication you're at least pretty good, right? If you win a Gold Glove and you're not a great hitter, you're a pretty good fielder. It seems like it's funny how all the Gold Glove winners usually are good hitters also. But anyway, different conversation. Hey, just so you know too, Osich just gave up a grand slam to Grisham.
Oh my God. Okay, well, so the Reds and Padres are playing at Great American Ballpark, and it was a typical Great American Ballpark game because the Padres had hit 3 solo home runs early in the game. The Reds had a 3-run homer in the first inning. I think they went walk, single, homer the first 3 batters, and then Joey Votto hit a home run. Well, apparently now the scrub Osik that they called up, that they got on a minor league deal, is now giving up the grand slam. I'm not looking at the game right now. I can't do that. It'll draw my attention. So
sorry, I am.
But I really appreciate it, Nathan. I really do.
I thought you'd like to know. Yeah,
it's fine. How bad are we losing?
7-5.
Oh, okay. So it's been unchanged.
Yeah, it's not badly yet.
Great American Ballpark is a weird park because it actually doesn't, not historically, actually have more runs scored in games played there, but the home run rate is way higher. So the home run rate is 20% above average, which is one of the biggest. But then most years it doesn't actually lead to more runs. So you just have lots of it just becomes like home run derby, and that's.
Are they cheap? Are they cheap home runs?
No,
are they sort of wall scrapers, or do they go into the river?
You got to understand the park, the right field part of the park, which it's fairly short in right field, was designed so that Ken Griffey Jr., Griffey Jr., who was on the Reds at the time, could hit as many home runs as possible, which he did hit a fair amount of home runs in that park, but he also spent a whole lot of time injured.
Time
in Cincinnati.
I was a Griffey. Well, I still am in a way, Griffey disciple. Like, I loved watching him. He's an amazing baseball player.
I think the Reds failed to take into account what happens when you play center field on artificial turf, like he did for a decade plus in Seattle. Artificial turf is not really a thing anymore, but it was. So, and then of course he was on artificial turf when he first came to Cincinnati too. And I mean, it takes a toll on you. I played one youth football game on artificial turf in the old Cincinnati ballpark. I mean, it's like playing on a concrete parking lot with like a very thin layer of like flat carpet on it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if I was running around on that, I don't think my legs would be in too good a shape either. So.
Survive.
Yeah. I mean, in retrospect, they probably should have taken that into account, but what are you going to do? But yeah, so I don't know, the park just apparently it's the way the way the wind is, or the way that the park is angled, the way the wind happens. It's not like Coors Field where it's at altitude, and so then the breaking pitches don't rotate, or they don't move the same way. So when a pitcher throws the breaking ball, then it doesn't move, and then it just hangs, and then the batters tee off on them. Plus, Coors Field also has more space in the outfield for doubles and triples, which Great American Ballpark does not have that. So a lot of the reason why Coors Field used to always have more runs is because doubles and triples would go, into the alleys over and over again. Anyway, I don't know that I do love that. So pretty much every major league park is a little bit different. It used to be when I was a kid that there were a whole lot of these kind of cookie cutter, multi-purpose parks where they had you go there and they have the ghost of the football field over top the there
was a few like that, wasn't there, back
and
in the 80s.
That is now a thing of the past for the most part, I think, mostly. And we have real grass, and you have usually some sort of interesting dimensions, and so that kind of stuff that's a big improvement, I think, over.
Definitely. Part of why I like it, going to different. Well, I've been lucky enough to go to a few different ballparks, and they're all just so. I mean, fundamentally they're the same, but they're just so different.
You did my segue for me. I was going to ask you. I know you are a Dodgers fan. Do I have that?
Nah.
No, you're a Cubs fan. I'm sorry. You're a Cubs.
In theory, I'm a Cubs fan.
Sorry about that. I don't know why.
No, that's fine. So my baseball fandom was pretty much started in the early to mid 80s. So we got a VCR at home. Like my dad got a video recorder, and they used to play baseball, and usually it was the playoffs, and we'd get a playoffs game, but they'd play at midnight, our time. And
so they play them live then?
No,
tape delay.
No, it was like from the day before, or even 2 days before. So
okay.
So
you could get away with that. You could get away with that then because people could just go on the internet, right? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing. Obviously nothing was online. There wasn't really anywhere in Australia that gave away the scores. We had a couple of sports shows, and when the playoffs were on, they would talk about them a little bit, but they would show the games, and the first, probably the one I remember is I think it was the Padres and Tigers played, maybe, or it might have been the Padres and the Cubs played in the NLCS or something.
84
in the early 80s, 83, 84.
84.
Yeah,
and I don't know the teams every year, but that year the Padres and the Cubs, two teams that were very unused to going to the playoffs. In our youths, were both there at the same time, right? So
So
that's the only reason.
Tony Gwynn stuck out to me. Like, I just couldn't believe this guy just kept hitting. And the Padres were brown and yellow, and my footy team here is the Hawks, and they're brown and gold in theory,
really?
But brown and yellow. So, so that was sort of my first team, but I was more interested in the players for some reason. So
That explains why
Tony
we had that
Gwynn.
long conversation about the Padres that one time.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I don't know.
Yeah, it was a while ago now, but
yeah, it was.
I guess my baseball history sort of started in the 80s, and as I've got older, I've learned more about what happened in the 60s and the 50s, and Mantle and Mays and all these great players and stuff. But my time in baseball sort of started from then.
Yep.
And so it was recorded games for a long time, probably until like the mid 90s. They used to have games on. They'd have game of the week, and sometimes they'd run them during the day, but it'd always be a replay of the game. So that's sort of where I started. But then I found my way to in the late 80s. I found my way to Ken Griffey, and I was like a Mariners guy. And
so you started out Padres, went to Mariners, and then you ended up on Cubs.
So I was neutral for a long time. Like when Griffey left the Mariners, I sort of was just a Griffey fan. And then he was injured, so he sort of disappeared a lot. So the first game I went to was back in 2004, I think. We were going overseas. My sister-in-law was getting married, so she lived in Canada. She was getting married in Hawaii. I had family in Dubai at the time, so we sort of did a bit of a trip, Dubai, and then we sort of fell onto the East Coast, and the flight just happened to land in Chicago. And I was lucky enough, my partner said, well, if you're going to be in Chicago, go and see a game. It was, and it happened to be the Cubs. Maddox pitched against the Expos. And lost 7-0. So that was like really disappointing. But I sat in Wrigley Field for probably an hour and a half, and I couldn't tell you what happened. I was just amazed to be sitting in Wrigley Field. So then I thought, when I left there, I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to have a team, it's probably got to be the Cubs. And the fact that they were terrible and had this long history, the long history of failure, it was sort of amusing, I guess, in a way. And my dad was a long-time Red Sox fan, or is a long-time Red Sox fan. But once the Red Sox started getting good and winning, Dad changes his allegiance, to
it's true.
someone else. So so that's a little bit.
Neither the Red Sox nor the Cubs can claim underdog status in 2021 for sure.
No,
that's true.
So that's sort of where I ended up with the Cubs. But I've been a few times to the US and been to a few different stadiums, which is cool.
Yeah. Okay. I got to go to Wrigley Field before they did the latest round of renovations on it. I believe it was 2003.
Yeah, right.
Actually, I'm going to talk about this with my friend Drew, who's the Chicago owner. I was visiting him. He lives in Chicago. He's a Cubs fan. We went to college together in Ohio. I rode a bus from Cincinnati to Chicago, and we went and saw the Cubs get knocked out of the Reds got to play spoiler, and they won. And they knocked the Cubs out of the playoffs. Or I can't remember if they knocked them out of the playoffs or they knocked them from like the division lead down to a wild card, something like that. They played. The Reds weren't that good. So I got to see that, and that was like the old. That was the Wrigley Field you go to in 2021 is different. It's much nicer. It looks the same. It still looks pristine on television, but it's really cleaned up and stuff now. Back then, there's a lot of like rusty chain link fences, and
it was grimy.
It was grimy. Now it is much
really
more
grimy.
And I know Drew has some opinions on that I he's lived in Chicago now for like about 20 years. So
right.
We'll talk about that when we get to his episode about how he feels about the Wrigley Fields. But because I got to go again a couple years ago, where the Reds proceeded to kick the Cubs' butt pretty hard. Like it was like 10-3. I was very surprised because the Reds weren't very good and the Cubs were really good. But I sat in the outfield, got really sunburned, and watched the Reds unexpectedly kick butt. So it was, I think that was either 18 or 19. I mean, it was pre-pandemic, obviously, but I think it was 19 actually. So and I haven't gotten a chance to go back to Chicago again since then, but it's
no one's got a chance to.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, as you know, as it stands here in Ohio, I can drive to the Red Stadium in a couple hours, or I can go to the AAA Columbus games here, which is the Indians farm team. Which I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, it's not the same. You know, I mean, it's cheap. I can take my kid. You know.
Yeah, that's one thing I would love to do again. Well, to love to do at some point is try and go to some minor league sort of games just to see what that atmosphere is like. And you know, apparently it's a lot cheaper and potentially a lot more enjoyable. So
it can be. I mean, baseball is more of a sideshow in the baseball game. You know? It's more of a family entertainment. It's like people are taking their families to this game instead of taking them to the amusement park or the
movie theater or whatever.
Or the movie theater or whatever. So, you know, the kids, you know, I mean, there's especially at the AAA level, where you might have a few, you know, recognizable names on each team. But you know, most of the fans are not following it really closely the way that they would with Major League Baseball. So it's very different in that way. I also went to AAA games when they had a team in Portland when I lived there, which the AAA team in Portland, the Beavers, moved to Arizona, I believe, while I was still living there. And then that stadium is now where the Major League Soccer Portland Timbers play. So they only have one little stadium in Portland, despite it being a pretty large city, you know, so other cities got more stadia than they know what to do with. You know, we go to those games and you go in and basically we're just drinking $2 beers and hanging out. And like, I mean, you know, the Beavers were a farm team of the Padres at the time. And I mean, I recognized a few players just because I knew a lot about baseball and I played, you know, fantasy baseball, but it wasn't like it was, you know, so, I mean, when I was a kid and I'd go to Reds games, I would get the scorecard and keep score, you know, at 9, 10, 11 years old, I'd sit there and score and use all the terminology and, which I knew how to do because I would keep score for my dad's slow pitch softball team. I'm the
that's
son
one
of
thing I never learned. I never learned how to score and generally
it's a lost art.
If you learn once you learn how to score, if you're involved, like I'm involved in baseball here, and once you learn how to score, it's generally your job. So I'm never going to learn how to score.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. I really want to. Obviously, I'm aware of an Australian baseball league. I know your city has a team in that league. Tell me a little bit about the Australian baseball league, because I think probably the only time when it's really come up, when it's become part of something an American baseball fan would notice, would be during the World Baseball Classic or maybe the Olympics, which are coming up. Tell me about the Australian Baseball League.
Look, it's hard for me to say what standard it is, but by all reports, it's probably a AA.
That's what I've heard.
AA standard. Look, there, you know, we had a junior out.
Yeah, high A or double A.
Yeah, we had a junior out here. He was playing for the Melbourne Aces. He lasted about, and I was lucky enough. I didn't know who he was. I went and watched a few Melbourne Aces games, and you could see that he was really good at baseball. Like, you were watching him play and you thought, this guy is way better than this standard. And he ended up going home early, or going to America early. So the season here runs from, say, around about the start of November till the end of February.
Which is basically summertime, because the Southern Hemisphere's got reversed. That's
Just
making that clear for anyone who hasn't thought about that.
So our seasons are opposite. So at the moment, I'm sitting here in the middle of our winter.
Right. Okay.
It's, it was like 6 degrees when I woke up this morning early. So it was cold.
You do mean he means 6 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
No. It's fine. It's fine. I'm fascinated by these differences. It's great.
Yeah. So,
Fahrenheit. We're weird in America using Fahrenheit and inches and all that crap. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is what it is. That's what you use. It's interesting though, because I think there is a bit of a push for the Yanks to change. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't tell Americans to do anything.
Like the anti-vaxxer movement.
Right. You can't tell Americans to do anything. You really can't. It's part of our national fabric it's just part of our thing. And I mean, Americans can't tell Americans to do anything, as evidenced by the vaccination rate. But the metric system they've tried to introduce it before, and people
wouldn't adopt it. Yeah.
No, I mean,
sorry. Anyway.
I learned it in school. They actually teach it to you in school. I mean, as a curiosity more than anything else.
Yeah, right.
And I remember I was in, I think it was 6th grade.
Yeah.
So I was about 11, 12. And I knew about the metric system because most kids in the 80s carried trapper keepers, right? And I'm sure they had trapper, the like fold up thing that had the folders in it. You put your school papers in. You know what I'm talking
about. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have them anymore. Or if they do, they don't call them trapper keepers, right? Or I'm sure they're around. It's a trademark. But and on the trapper key, printed on the trapper keeper folders were a bunch of like metric conversions and stuff. Because I would always, be bored in school. I would like read these things over and I kind of memorized them. So I understood all that stuff. It's just I never used it because, everybody uses inches and feet.
Had no need.
And cups and all the British measurements. So so we had a unit on the metric system, and I'm like, this is easy. You know what? And our teacher, my math teacher in 6th grade was like trying to sell the metric. He was like a metric system guy. He wanted to sell it to the class. And, but he gave a test on the first day to see if anybody knew the metric system. And I got them all right. And I was real proud of myself. Right. I was also kind of a dork.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's something to be proud of.
No, it's not. I can't believe I'm telling the story, but I mean, it's still hard for me to think of stuff in metric terms, what, like how many, is 100 kilometers. Is that a long way? And I have to like do the math in my head to figure out, is that a long, okay, I get it. It's about whatever, 60 miles. Yeah. So it's,
it depends if you're walking or driving. But yes.
Right. No, that's true. So, I mean, it's that kind of stuff is, the other story I was going to tell that it was about temperature really, really quick. So when I was in graduate school, I spent 3 weeks in South Africa as part of my business master's program. And so I was talking to some of the South Africans we were working with on our project and stuff down there. And I made the mistake of talking about temperature in Fahrenheit, and I got these like real big eyes, like, oh my goodness, that's hot, but I was like, oh no, I meant 80.
Wrong one.
Oh. And so I was like trying to do 80 times 5 divided by 9 minus 32, and I was like trying to do it in my head. It's like, oh, that's about 27 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I was like,
so just nice.
Like, wow, it's hot in America.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's but not. I mean, it's hot, but it's,
no,
it's not that hot. So I did that a couple times to people without really thinking about it. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's strange. It's strange. It sort of comes up every now and then. Like, there's a couple of American guys who live here, and they're probably conditioned to it now, but they sort of still speak in the old tongue, I guess, is potentially what they're doing.
I guess.
So, sorry, off track again.
It happens.
Australian Baseball League, So
yes, please, thank you. Australian Baseball League.
Sorry. So there's about half a dozen teams, and then a couple of years ago they put a team in Geelong, which they called Geelong Korea.
Right. I wanted to ask you about that too. Yeah, because that seemed interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting experiment. So basically they put a team in, and they pretty much filled it with, they use it as like spring training for the Korean League. So they'd fill it with Korean players, but it was the Korean players who probably weren't playing in the KBO. So it was more like guys who were maybe a rung or two below that. So there was a couple of, at one point there was a dude and I'm not sure if it is that the guy from San Francisco, is he Korean? Ha-Sung Kim?
He's on San Diego, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know if he was floating around, but there's lots of, it's probably like Smith. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of Kims and, and all that.
I mean, I watched a little bit of, I think a lot of American baseball fans who were jonesing for some baseball watched, because they broadcast some of the KBO games around this time last summer while they were waiting for MLB to be safe to start.
Figure it out.
They ended up starting and it really wasn't safe. But I watched some of the KBO games. They would come on right as we got out of bed in the morning. And Kim, they were talking about Kim at the time because he had just, did he sign before last year or no? He signed after.
No, he signed this year. Yeah.
Right. Okay. After last year. So, they were talking about it and he was like a superstar. He was like, he was like the A-Rod of Korean baseball. I mean, he's a shortstop and I know he's had a little bit of it, at least a tough time in America at first. Yeah. But I think from what I saw, he's coming around a little bit. Yeah.
Finding his feet. Yeah. He's getting a few opportunities to play by the look of it. But
the Padres are pretty deep, so they're pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they brought in this essentially a Korean team, and they weren't very good, and they didn't win in their first season. I think they might have won one game. They probably play about 25 to 30 games in the season. So they play weekend series. So for 4 games over a weekend. So like maybe a Thursday night through Sunday. And then, they travel around a bit and things like that. They also brought in Kyle's team. Kyle's a fan of the Chua Chura, which is the New Zealand team that were in the league. So I see his name pop up in some ABL stuff every now and then, well, more in the Auckland stuff that he's a fan of that. I'm pretty sure. So they brought in these 2 teams to try and expand the league a bit. The Aussie Baseball League's trying to get a bit more of a relationship with the Asian league because obviously it's closer.
It's true.
And it's just it's a bit of a windfall, I guess. If they bring out a squad of 25 Koreans and they're all running around Geelong and spending their money and all those sorts of things, that's always good. So Geelong's had a few. We had the Marines from the Japanese, from the Nippon League. Bobby Valentine was the manager. Was it Chibalote? Chibalote, yeah.
Chibalote. Sorry, I can't pronounce it, but I know what it.
I don't know if I get it right. They came and
You're right. Lotte. That's right.
Yeah, they came and did some spring training stuff out here at one stage, and I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Benny Agbayani?
Oh yeah, I was on the Mets.
He was playing. He was playing for Chibalote, so he was hitting bombs in this like local baseball. Like the local baseball stadium here, he was hitting balls like over the hitter's eye. Like we're going like we'd never seen balls hit that far, and this was like practice and stuff like that. So the Bobby Valentine thing was funny because I've got somewhere around here. I should have gone to look for it, but I've got a fake nose and glasses signed by Bobby Valentine.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everyone would know that story, but I took this fake nose and glasses up because obviously he got kicked out of the game. He came back with some weird.
I remember.
Thing. Yeah.
He tried.
So I took it up.
Put a disguise on.
And I got dared. My brother dared me to do it and to go and sign it. But he smiled at me and signed it and didn't really say a lot. And I thought, I better go now. So that's my Bobby Valentine story, I guess. But,
he's an interesting guy. He's kind of a Renaissance man. Actually, last I heard, I don't believe he works in baseball anymore. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think so. There was a good doco. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it was an ESPN one or something that I saw that followed him around for a season or a little while he was with the Marines. So
the last
he's
time,
an interesting guy.
Yeah, the last time I heard about him, it was fairly recently, and he was running for political office where he lived
Oh, really?
somewhere in the Northeast. Yeah, he lived somewhere in the Northeast, like in New Hampshire or Vermont or one of the like
Wow.
small New England states. I mean, they're all small.
Are they're fairly
Suburbs.
affluent areas, yeah?
Yeah, mostly. I
Yeah.
mean, the New England states tend to be.
Yeah. Old money sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, but it's those there were Europeans living in that area far before they were living in like the Western United States. So
Yeah.
like just stuff is So in that sense, they've been around longer. Of course, I mean it's we think 100 years is really old. So
Yeah.
like a building that's 100 years old is
Wow.
yeah.
Australia's no different.
I guess that's true. I mean, I have a fairly close friend who's British, and actually he just became an American citizen, because he's been here for a while. But
is he all right?
Yeah, I know. Well, he works for a union, and so he was out doing political canvassing, but he wasn't
really?
vote himself until actually he just became a citizen a few months ago, which is fascinating. I was like, you're out canvassing for Joe Biden, you're out canvassing for Barack Obama, but you're not allowed to vote for them.
Not even.
Yeah,
you haven't even got a vote. Yeah.
But yeah, we talk about this sometimes. He'll start talking about British history, which of course is thousands of years, and I don't know jack squat about British history.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the American Revolution. I know that part. I don't know what they call it. Something else. But like he's like, oh yeah, back in 1412 there was a, and I don't know, maybe it's just this particular person who, I don't know if they're all like that, but it's just, I'm like, things are
can't fathom the time, can you?
Yeah, stuff over, stuff in the UK is 5, 6, 7, 800 years old. I mean, not everything, but a fair number of things.
There's lots of
castles and random walls and holes in the ground and gravestones and whatever else. So it's hard to, I mean, it just, that just isn't a thing here. So it's, I don't know, that it's always fascinating, even though he'll make reference to some king I've never heard of. I mean, unless there was a Shakespeare play about it or something, that's about the only reason I would ever know. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot to learn. So, I mean, I attended a state school. So, I know a few things, but not that many. So,
I don't think you know all that.
Yeah, well, maybe they're just good at pretending. I was telling him that actually. I was like, the thing is, Americans hear your British accent and they tend to. I mean, he has kind of, there's basically two British accents. There's the kind of the middle class accent, and then there's kind of the working class accent, and he has kind of the middle class accent. He was as he tells me, he was a Blur guy. He wasn't an Oasis guy, right? So, I said Americans hear that accent and they immediately assume you are of very high intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I should use that more, shouldn't I? I said, you should.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, use it for good, not evil.
Yeah, right. And so, I think, I don't know what, I don't know what Australians tend to perceive Americans as like, and I'm not exactly sure what we perceive Australians to be like. Like stereotypically, I mean, it's not that it's maybe that you're tend to be kind of fun loving. I don't know. Is that
I think we're in general we're not very intense. In the we're quite easygoing and we're
and a lot of Americans are not.
we're just happy to sort of just flow along with things, and we don't. I mean, look, it's. I guess we have our moments, and obviously with COVID and things like that, there's been lots of opinions out there, and lots of people who are not going to budge from their opinion, and we saw a little bit of that. Not to the level of what you guys had, obviously, but then there's a shitload more of you guys than what there is of us. So, you know,
your population's about, is it about 100 million?
80
no, million?
No.
Less.
No.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't look it up first, so I'm just guessing.
I'd probably need to look it up, but I'd be surprised if it was more than like 30 million.
Okay, sorry.
We're a big island, and
true.
we don't live in a lot of it. So
that's true.
A lot of the middle part of Australia is not occupied. I guess it's
we have that too.
Quite remote. So we all tend to live on the coast, you know, around the edges. So look, I don't know how many people are in Australia, to be honest. I'm probably showing my ignorance.
It's fine. I thought I was pretty close, my guess. So I mean, we'll look. Maybe we'll post it in the comments or whatever. Like
I'll look it up.
Somebody hit it on Wikipedia. I don't like to try to look stuff up in the middle of the interviews because
no, that's fine.
By that. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess we both countries have their flyover territory, as we call it. You know, you fly over, you know, I mean, some of it's the Rocky Mountains. It's pretty tough to live in, you know, but then, you know, some of the part in the central where there's more, you know, more cows or more cattle than people.
People. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the middle of Australia is pretty barren. So, sort of, you know, obviously you go up to Northern Territory and, you know, Uluru and you know, the crocodiles and all that sort of stuff. And but yeah, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, I'd really love to visit there someday. I mean, I've seen a few Midnight Oil music videos. I've seen you know, I used to watch The Amazing Race religiously. They go through every so often.
Always go through.
You know, I mean, you know, I've seen it, but it's, you know, never been, and you know, would like to go.
Jake came. Jake spent a summer or Christmas here. Jake Mintz,
former member of the league.
Yeah, I reckon he
podcasting,
was here.
Broadcast partner of Jordan.
Yeah,
talked to a few episodes back.
It might have been. Yeah, it was probably.
I didn't know
think
that.
he was still in the league then. He spent a Christmas in Sydney, I think.
Really?
And actually went to a few of the ABL games that were on and things like that. It's somehow.
I didn't know that.
Somehow, I think he got a press pass or something. Oh, not that was probably that difficult to do, but he pretty turned up and got some sort of whether he knew someone, because the ABL was owned by Major League Baseball for a few years.
But it isn't now.
No, I don't think so now.
Okay.
No, but we still get some teams sending over those, you know, minor league guys and things like that. So, I reckon it's actually something I want to maybe email to Goldstein is just asking about that process. And, you know, I think the Astros might have sent a few guys to Adelaide at one point. So one of the things that's in the back of my head is to email him and just say, you know, what went into, you know, it's sort of interesting to send a guy, you know, as I said before, to the arse end of the world, basically, to play baseball. And, you know, what is, you know, what's in it for the major league club or even the minor league clubs, you know, obviously it's a little bit of player development, but it's a long way to send someone to get some experience. So that sort of is interesting to me.
That's true. I mean, obviously you talked about the team in Geelong that was basically all Koreans, but most of the other players in the league and the other franchises are Australians. Am I right? And there's occasionally a foreign player.
Yeah. So like the Melbourne Aces, who's the team up the road from Geelong, they would often have maybe 4 or 5 Japanese guys. So, and they would play, but then they would go home before the season was finished because their spring training is starting and things like that. So, so it is interesting that, you know, you get a bit of a, you know, you get the locals and then you get some international players, I guess. And it's just interesting seeing that. Delman Young's played with the Melbourne Aces for probably 4 or 5 years.
He still is?
Yeah.
Okay. I knew he did. As soon as you said it, I remembered that he did do that. But
yeah, he hits the snot out of the ball down here. He just hits and hits, and
doesn't watch too many. Doesn't really care about catching it either.
No, he doesn't have to. He just DHs. I think he's living his best life. That's for sure.
Sure.
I don't know whether he. I presume he goes back home once the season's done, but yeah, he seems to really like it here because he's been here. I'd say he's been here about 5 years. He's been playing with the Aces at a guess.
What kind of crowds do the different teams tend to draw? I mean, do they draw and of those crowds, what kinds of, I mean, is it mostly Caucasian fans, or is it like, do they have, does baseball in Australia have appeal to, like what, Asian people descent, or?
So I guess, look, it's probably, you're probably lucky to get a couple of hundred people to a game on most days. Okay. So it's pretty thin. So it's not, it's not a highly popular activity to go and watch some local, the baseball, and the people who go and watch it are the baseballers. So you do see, on occasion you'll see, when the Japanese are there, you'll definitely see some of their countrymen, and they'll be cheering pretty hard for them. But what you'll find is the crowds are fairly reserved. Like, we're pretty, as I said earlier, we don't go over the top with too much. We'll clap and cheer when things happen, but it's not like going to you watch some of the crowd activity in the Nippon or the KBO, and those people are going nuts. But obviously, there's 30 or 40,000 of them, and they're watching a pretty good standard of baseball. So
and there's like choreographed activities that happen, kind of like what happens in soccer / football. Yeah.
To be honest, the Australian, they do all the the charge chant and all that, and not too many Australians will get into it. We sort of sit back and go, well, there's 300 of us here. It's not really going to work.
Yeah. So, what are you trying to prove, mate?
A little bit. We see that. Come on, guys.
Well, so what I was going to say was, it seems like, I mean, if you're laid back, fun-loving sort of people, I mean, that's our collective general characterization of the culture. I understand that these things are, we're painting broadly, but baseball has that kind of relaxed pace. I mean, it's you can have a conversation with someone. Obviously, I love talking, and I used to sit at games with my dad as a kid and talk whoever around's ear off the whole time, and then something exciting would happen every so often. You jump up and cheer, or you boo, or you look in pain at the grand slam some guy gave up or whatever. And I'm not checking the score. Don't tell me.
There's a weather delay.
Yeah.
It's raining.
Right. Yeah.
They're
and
still down.
Of course. You're having a lot of fun with this, aren't you?
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the Cubs got smacked this morning, so they lost 15 to 7.
They did. I know. I saw that. Yeah.
Terrible.
So, most of I've said this before in some of the other episodes, my strong dislike within my team's division is mostly reserved for the Cardinals, not the Cubs.
Yes.
So I'm at peace with the Cubs. I'm at peace with the Brewers. The Brewers are usually, they're like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy's definition of Earth, mostly harmless. The Brewers being good is a recent thing, and the Pirates are, they're just they're kind of there to get beat up.
They were good. They were good back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day they were good.
Way back in the day.
I mean, the World Series that my team won I I wasn't actually born before it. In 1970, the Big Red Machine era in the 1970s, I wasn't born yet. I was just about to be born. But in 1990, when the Reds won the World Series, they had to beat the Pirates, and the Pirates had Barry Bonds and they had Andy Van Slyke, and they were real good. And
they were good.
So, and then they went.
The Reds were awesome in that World Series.
They were not as good on paper, but they were on a hot streak. Like, when they got to play Oakland were like, they were the best team in the game. Nobody was testing for steroids. They had Canseco and McGuire, and they had the best starting pitching rotation of that era, basically.
Yeah.
And the Reds just, pow, 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 just like that, 4 games in a row. That was great. So I was 13 or 13. So
yeah,
that was the thing. And then it's never gotten that close since. So, and who knows if it ever will again, the way we're going. So,
I'm sure it will turn at some point, but.
Well, there's some economic realities that small market teams face. You basically have to, if you're a small market team, you have to do everything perfect. You can't make big mistakes. The Yankees can afford to sign a guy who doesn't do anything for a lot of money and just go out and get a different guy, and
I don't know about that with the Yankees at the moment. I think the impression I'm getting that they're so worried about the luxury tax that they won't do anything. I mean, they're pretty ordinary at the moment.
That's true. It's I'm just using them as an example. But, it is weird that the luxury tax, which is, these are billionaires, right? And the luxury tax is apparently, who needs a salary cap? We have a luxury tax because, the billionaire doesn't want to pay a few extra million in tax. That doesn't make sense to me. It never has.
No.
So I don't know why, but whatever it takes, man, to keep.
Exactly.
Baseball could use a little bit more socialism, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And the NFL's already, the National Football League's already very socialist. The NBA a little bit socialist too. So, baseball could, baseball's a little bit more, capitalism run rampant. So, I don't know. I don't know if they'll ever really do anything about it. I've come around to the idea that they should stop rewarding the worst team with the highest draft pick as a thing. Like, why are we encouraging teams to be bad to get these just in recent history, the Nationals tanking so that they could get Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg, right? The Astros tanking so they could get Carlos Correa and let's see, I know they got Alex Bregman in that era too, but who was the other guy? Oh, well, no. George Springer.
Was Springer one? Springer wasn't one.
He might.
Didn't they go and get? Didn't they try and get? What was the pitcher's name?
I can't believe I'm drawing
or something like that.
I'm drawing a blank now. Well, but they tanked is the point. The Cubs tanked and got got some guys. So they got to put an end to the tanking. They said I've read that any baseball fandom, the attendance is, obviously last year is an anomaly. So, but over the last few years, the attendance has leveled off or dropped, been flat. And the belief is that, and this is an opinion, but I buy this, so that's why I'm repeating it as if it were a fact. That because these last 5 years or so, especially, you only have about half the league actively doing everything that it can to win every possible game that it can.
Yeah.
And then the other half of the teams, it's not that they don't want to win. Of course they want to win, but they're either, they've got a budget, they're not going to spend above it. They're like a team like Cleveland, who is constantly about to be really good, but then they just never quite do what they need to do. And then they kind of stay pretty good, and they don't, or a team that doesn't have any money, or a team that, or the teams that are tanking, or, they're rebuilding. There's nothing wrong with rebuilding, but they really should incentivize teams that even are not that good. They should incentivize them trying to win. So whether that means it's the lottery. We put the lottery in our league, right? We happen to have a computer science teacher in the league, Kyle. And was like, hey, why should we encourage in our fake fantasy baseball league? Why should we encourage you tanking to get the number 1 pick? Let's have a lottery. That's been great. So I've never been in it, but
it's something, I mean, it's common, it's the same thing that happens here with our local like footy and stuff like that is, there's 18 team league and the way to get, the way to be successful, in theory, the model is to build from our draft. So, it's basically stuck for a couple of years, and you get a few early draft picks, and if you're bad enough, you get a couple of compensatory draft picks as well. So you can draft, the core of your next good team over the period of maybe 2 to 3 years if you're bad enough, and then all of a sudden in 2 years after that, you're one of the top teams in the league. So, they have the same sort of debate, I guess. I guess the main difference, well, obviously completely different sports, but there is a salary is the same. There is a salary cap in the AFL, so the Australian Football League. So at some point there is a squeeze on your talent, and you have to sort of make a decision around, well, okay, we've got X amount of money to spend and we can't afford to keep our 5th best player, so he's got to go to another team, but then they're compensated with draft picks for using that player. So not a perfect system by any means, but it's sort of, I guess the thing that we found with the footy here is that it is one of the most, the last few years have been, whilst there's been like one particular team who's had a good run and won like three premierships or championships, whatever you want to call it, the competition is getting more and more even over the last few years. So it's sort of interesting to see it play out.
Right. The problem with baseball is that because it's very rare for a player to, once a player's drafted, or signed from the Latin America or whatever, it's very uncommon for them to get to the major leagues in less than 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So when teams tank to get the draft picks, the players they're getting, this is why the Major League, it's funny to see the Major League Baseball draft is now a televised event that they put on TV.
Yeah.
It was never on TV up until a few years ago, because nobody, with American football, you have a huge, massive popularity for college football. So people are watching that all the time. College football games draw 100,000 people in certain places. In where I live in Columbus, where the Ohio State Buckeyes will draw 100,000 fans to a game. And so when the players go to the pro football draft, people know who they are. So then they will watch that draft on television.
That's it. And they're going to make
nobody right.
They're going to make an impact that next season, and
they're going to, and they often make an impact right away. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what happens with the local footy here is that these kids are drafted when they're 18.
Right. And they're not ready. Right.
Most of the time
they're not as ready.
They're not quite ready, but the really good kids come in and play a role. So there's in Aussie rules football, there's 22 guys that get picked every week to play. So, you've got 18 or 20 of them on the field at any one time. So it's about, I guess, a kid who's 18 can come in, play a role. They may not dominate the game, but they may do the job that's required, whether it's, being in the forward line or the back line or whatever it might be. So, they sort of make it through the system, whereas baseball, it takes forever for these young guys to come through the system in the main. You draft them at 17, 18, but you don't see them in the bigs until they're 23, 24.
Right. Even college players take 2-3 years to make the bigs a lot of the time. Yeah. So, well, okay. So you brought up, obviously, we have football, which Americans call soccer, but I am familiar with Australian rules football, which is bears more of a resemblance to rugby. And I remember watching Australian rules football. I was a kid, and in my house, we did not have cable television in the 1980s. Okay. My mom would not allow us to have cable television in the house because I believe it was my cousins. They watched MTV all the time, and they were different than us. And it's just funny in retrospect. Like, she just decided, like, my kids don't need to be watching cable television. It wasn't like a religious thing or anything like that. But and so I didn't have. So then when I would go to my grandma's house, I would watch cable television. I would sit there. She was an artist. She worked in her studio down in the basement, and I would sit upstairs for fairly long periods of time with the old style, like, rectangular console with the buttons on it, and push the buttons around and flip around the channels. And Australian rules football would be on ESPN in the afternoons pretty frequently. And so you watch this game and you see these guys all running around, and they they dress, rugby players don't dress that much differently than soccer players. They don't wear a lot of padding or anything. It's not like American football. And they run around, and then the ball goes out of bounds, and then the referee grabs it and bounces it off the ground as hard as he can. It flies about 25 feet in the air or whatever it is. I don't know how far high. And it was fascinating. And then these guys just kill each other trying to grab it, and take off running. And so regular rugby is different. It's a lot of, like, groups of people pushing and shoving and doing this in scrums, basically. But Australian rules football is wild. It's crazy. I mean, from what I remember of it, was wild stuff to watch. And is that number 2 behind soccer in popular, or
no,
soccer?
It's number 1.
It is number 1. Okay, sorry. I was thinking maybe soccer was still king. So
no, soccer's probably always been a third tier sport. Like, as a kid, and obviously I'm a bit older, but as a kid there was sort of, there was two main options, which is cricket and footy. So they're the two main sports, and cricket, going back to what you were saying about baseball and having conversations and things like that, that's exactly what cricket is, right? So and it's just something you can do over 5 days, which is ridiculous, but a
little bit, but
that's the nature of the game. So but you can sit at a cricket match, and you can sit there and have a conversation with whoever you're with. You can have conversations with random people in the crowd, and it's just there seems to be a lot of time to be able to do that. Footy is a bit different. Footy is a bit more action-packed. It's sort of squished into 2.5 hours in general, with a few breaks in between. So that's sort of the number 1 sport pretty much across the country. So the northern states, so New South Wales, where Sydney is, and Queensland, where Brisbane is, they're probably dominated by rugby league and rugby union. But the Australian rules footy has sort of become that nationalised competition, since probably the early 90s. So Aussie rules footy is probably the number 1. Soccer's probably trying to catch up and is doing a pretty good job at catching up. They just seem to, in our country, they just seem to shoot themselves in the foot quite often.
You talking about the national team?
Well, no, just the local national league. So
the league, okay.
The league just seem to suffer from mismanagement a lot of the time, and things just don't quite go the way they should. So at the moment, they're having issues with a lack of, and obviously COVID's had a bit of an effect there, but lack of crowds turning up to games and things like that. So their TV deal, I don't know for sure, but I think the soccer TV deal sort of been reviewed, and it's not as lucrative as what it once was. So so they weren't getting, even the television views that maybe they were expecting, or maybe they once did. So soccer's the one that threatens, and soccer is probably the thing that the Australian Rules Football League would be most worried about. So even at a local level, that the Australian rules stuff for kids was always on a Saturday morning or a Friday night, and soccer sort of had the Sunday as their sport time. And then all of a sudden, locally, there's all these Aussie rules games that are being moved to Sunday mornings, so that there's a bit of a conflict between the two, and kids have to make a choice. So it's a bit of a funny, I guess, a bit of a funny relationship that they have.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I knew Australian rules football was. I knew it was at least pretty popular. I don't know that I would have guessed it was more popular than soccer. Just
I guess it's probably the national sport.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right. Well, so I mean, baseball. I mean, would you say baseball's increasing in popularity, or is it kind of has a little niche? Because I mean, you're talking about something that's no higher than fourth. I mean, after
baseball would probably be probably less. As I said, they're getting a couple of hundred people to their like National League games. So, look, it is a niche sport. That's for sure. And it's probably no different to what you hear in the States. Baseball is an expensive sport.
It's true.
To go and buy a glove, a bat, a helmet, cleats, batting glove. You're up for $500 or $600 before you get on the field. Whereas
I never used to think of it that way as a kid. I played youth baseball.
No, you don't.
Pay $40 or $50 to sign up, and you get a jersey. And I mean, but the team had bats, the team had helmets, the team had But it is true. I've heard this before. I know this is something someone like Kevin Goldstein's probably talked about, where there is, if you're a teenager and you're serious about playing baseball and possibly playing pro ball, you have to invest in stuff, because a lot of these players play travel ball. Travel ball is very expensive. You'll go to I've had this happen a couple times. My family is traveling somewhere on vacation. We're driving. We stop at a random motel that's somewhere in the middle of where we're going, and the hotel will be full of people for no particular reason, and it'll be like travel sport parents. And sometimes it's gymnastics, sometimes it's baseball, sometimes it's all sorts of different, because all these sports have these travel team, and you spend an enormous amount of time and money traveling around after your kid, buying your kid equipment. I mean, it's not something that just any parents and any family can do. And that's no different with baseball. So I and my brother actually play, and I'll talk about this with him when we have our interview. He did also play travel ball for a while, not really intensely, but when he was a little younger. So like when he was in junior high school.
It just like amazes me that, and I understand why people do it, because obviously, their kids love playing and their kids are pretty good at it and all these sorts of things. But, the chances of making a career out of it are just like minuscule in my eyes. Like, we have kids over here, and, my son's 19, sort of 19 and a half, and he's got a few of his mates that play baseball and things like that. And, they'll go, and I think, they'll go into like a Division 3 college or something like that. And their parents will pay for them to go and play over there and things like that. And as much as I love my son, Christ, you've got to be good at the game to go and spend that much money to go and on the other side of the world and try and make something out of a baseball career. So
that's true. And college baseball, and I was going to try to make this comparison when I was bringing up college football. For college football is an enormously popular thing. College baseball is very much a niche thing that is not honestly really followed that closely in most areas. There are a few programs around the country that are known, but in general, the players with the highest upside tend to get picked, especially the position players tend to get picked when they're coming out of high school. So it's a college baseball. I'll talk about this with my brother too, about how he thought he was considering playing Division 3 college football, because he played high school football. And these Division 3 schools, here in the States, they, there are these small schools. They only have a few thousand students. I went to a high school that had 2,500 students and 600 people in the graduating class. And then after that, it got so big, it split into two schools.
Right.
The college, and so these colleges are not that, they're around that size. And those Division III schools, a lot of them actually, they stay afloat by basically getting kids who's, I suppose I'm being a little, I'll just say it. The kids really want to play and their parents can afford it.
Yeah.
The Division III schools can't give them a scholarship because they're Division III, but they can give them financial aid. They can make it easier. They can't give them a free ride. But, then the kid wants to keep playing sports, but they're not Division I material, So that's the niche that those Division III schools fill. And
I've had a few, there's been a few kids from locally here who have ended up at, there's one at the moment, Liam Spence. So he's with the University of Tennessee, I think. I think they made like the final 8 or something like that.
Oh yeah, college. UT is. That's Division I. That's a
like a good school, and he's playing leading off and playing school. Shortstop for them or second base for them or something like that. And he had a really good season.
So he's probably getting drafted then, huh? At some point.
Well, I don't know. This is the thing. Like his brother played. I can't remember what he played college, but I don't know where. And he ended up. I think he threw a couple of innings for the Padres at one point, and he's. I think he's he was a Yankees minor league coach. Then he sort of played for a little bit, got his cup of coffee, made his debut, and then sort of disappeared a bit. So and these, this is the thing. Like I've seen some pretty good baseballers sort of down here in Australia, and you just think, man, the difference between what the standard of those kids are to what probably is required to play in the bigs is just like miles apart. So anyway.
Yeah. That's true. No, that's true. It's like when we have, this guy is he's going to be the next great American soccer player. And then he goes over and plays in the Premier League and is like,
gets his ass handed
sits
to
on the bench. It's the same. That's another one of my favorite things about baseball is players come from all over. They really, there've been tons of Australian players who've made the big leagues.
There's a few.
I'm trying to think who's the biggest off the top of my head. Who's the biggest star though? Dave Nilsson,
for us it's Dave Nilsson and Graham Lloyd. So Graham Lloyd's actually from Geelong. So he pitched for the Yankees. He pitched for the Yankees in the mid-90s. He was a loogie. So
he was a loogie. Yeah, he would have a tough time getting a job today. Well, probably would still make the big leagues, but it would be a little tougher.
Exactly.
You can't just go out there and throw sliders to left-handed batters and then get pulled from the game, right? You can't get away with that anymore.
So he's
that may bring up some of our conversation about Amir Garrett, by the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's probably our from a local point of view, like he's a Geelong boy. So
sure.
He's our most famous export, and Dave Nilsson was a legend. He's a legend. For those guys, they were doing it in the early 90s. Just their abilities. Once again, it's beyond belief that someone from Australia could sort of just walk up and be. They weren't superstars, but they were effective in their roles. So
Dave Nilsson had some great seasons, though. I think he made at least one or two All-Star teams, right? And
I don't know if he made an All-Star, but he would have got close. He was pretty effective for a couple of years with the Brewers. I think he had a couple of good seasons. So it's they're probably our two most well known from here, anyway. And then. There's probably, at a guess, there might be 30 or 40 Australians in minor league systems and things like that. Around the place. The ABL sort of puts out a weekly update of, who's played, who's doing well at the moment, or who did something good in a game, and they sort of report on that a little bit, in the social media world.
Yeah, that's true. So, okay, well, so then I have to ask you. I've been meaning to do this, and just so how did baseball find you then? So you said you would run across games on television. I mean, was it really that simple? You're just, what is it about it though?
Yeah, it's my dad. My dad played.
Okay. There you go.
So it's as simple as that.
Okay. No.
And he played cricket. He played baseball, and here we have like a winter baseball league in Geelong. So there's also like a summer league, which the Geelong team plays in Melbourne. So it's like a more of a traveling aspect to it. So you have to travel, 1 to 2 hours to go and play a game. But the winter league's probably a bit more localized, and it's, the most you might travel is an hour.
Okay. But
there's lots of games that are local. Where I live, I can probably get to most clubs within 20 minutes. So it's really handy. That's sort of really what it was. Dad played. I remember watching Dad in, awful weather and freezing cold, and sitting in the car and complaining and all those sorts of things. And then I sort of, played footy. We had 4 football grounds out the back of my mum and dad's house. So I went and played footy for a year in the under 11s and had fun doing it. And then the next year I was supposed to go to under 13s. And I took a look at all the under 13s kids and said, nah, those kids are too big for me. I'm going to go and play baseball.
Yeah.
I was sort of probably too afraid to go and play footy. I thought, nah, this baseball caper seems like a lot more of a fun sport. And it was just, hitting and throwing. And when we played juniors, they didn't have like an outfield. It was just an open field. So if you hit the ball far enough, you'd like get a home run.
There's no fences, right?
No fence. Yeah, no fences, no witches' hats or anything. Just, it was just open. So if you hit the ball far enough, you could just run all the way around, which was always good fun. So, so that's sort of where I found baseball. And, from the age of, say, 12, I've always played, and I still sort of play now, which is probably stupid, but
no,
I still enjoy it.
I play a little bit of slow pitch softball, but I quit a few years ago, so I wasn't very
good. Yeah. So it's just something that I guess became part of me, and that's who I am now. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah. No. So then you've been a fan. It sounds to me like you've been a fan for most of your life in some fashion.
Yeah.
Or another. So what leads you then in the, say, early 2010s? What leads you to locate this weird Dynasty fantasy baseball league? And I'm assuming it came from something to do with the podcast with Kevin.
Yeah, definitely. So I've got a group of mates here, and we've got our own fantasy league, which probably started about the year 2000.
Wow. Okay.
And I got involved probably a couple of years after it started, and so that's a pretty social thing. We just hang a lot of shit on each other and laugh at each other and things like that. And so that league's, it's strange to say it, but that league's obviously been running for like 20 years.
Wow.
So it's just a roto league. We go from anywhere having maybe it's not a keeper or anything like that. So we go from anywhere from, say, maybe 10 people to 14 people that we just sort of draft people in and out, and people go in and then they sort of find that it's not for them and they leave. So, but there's a core group of about eight to 10 of us at the moment that, basically we live for the draft, for that league. So I started listening to ESPN and a few other, podcasts, and started to, I listened to a bit of Keith Law, and I actually sort of found him really interesting. And then, that was around the time of Up and In starting. And so, I just stumbled on it. I think I stumbled on it late. It might have been around the sort of, how many episodes did they get to? About 100?
Something like that. The show only really ran for not even 2 years.
So I reckon I stumbled in maybe in the 70s. Okay. And just, it was nothing like I'd ever heard baseball talked about before. So it was like how many of my mates talk about it a little bit, not that we're that smart. But there was this, I guess this, they talked about, the prospect side of things and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, I'm going to get a leg up on all my league mates here because I'm going to know about all these prospects. And that sort of led to, well, okay, what would it like being in a dynasty or a keeper league, and how would that work, and all those sorts of things. So, Crash put the post up, and I thought, screw it. Let's just have a go. And I honestly thought it might be in it for 2 years. I thought probably either I would get sick of it or everyone would get sick of it after 2 years and it would fall away. But amazingly, in a way, it's lasted for 10. So, 9 or whatever it is.
This is number 9.
So it was more, I guess, for the league, it was more of a curiosity as to, well, can I figure this out? Which I haven't. Yeah, which I haven't.
It's tough. There's a lot.
Yeah, and look,
I'm already dreading people leaving for whatever reason, because the bar to get somebody else in to replace them is higher than that. Yeah. I'm sorry, you were saying. Go ahead.
No, it is. It's a really tough. And when the rules and all that sort of stuff was first floated, I sort of honestly thought maybe I've bitten off too much here. Maybe I don't really need this. But it's just more about, well, I'm interested in the game and I want to know about lots of different, I guess, the different players and the different opinions on why this guy's good, or how is this guy good, and that sort of stuff. So it was probably just curiosity as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, that fundamental, that core concept where you basically are speculating, right? You're speculating on players, and instead of, I mean, not criticizing your league fan. I mean, most fantasy leagues are like the other one that the other one that you're in, that you're describing, right?
Yeah.
I'm in a second fantasy league where we only have 3 keepers, and you can only keep a player for 3 years. So, I mean, most of your team is different every year. Just you have a couple guys, and invariably the guys that I keep end up sucking the next year. I kept Kyle Freeland, or I kept Mitch Haniger. Mitch Haniger was missed all a year because he had a very terrible injury that I'm not going to talk about in detail. So it was, I mean, so it never worked out. In that way, but I'm just it's different when you get into it in the draft and you hear, okay, well, these are the guys I got this year, and maybe you trade some, or maybe you pick some up or whatever. But in our league, you're making a commitment to a guy. You're spending a first round draft pick every year on a guy. These are the guys that you're going to have, and you can sign free agents, but if you signed, if you made a mistake and signed, Albert Pujols, or, I always talk about, I signed, I got Joey Votto in the initial league auction. Joey Votto is my favorite player, active player at the time. He's not my favorite player of all time. He's my favorite active player. And I knew from the time that I signed him in 2013, he had just started this 9-year contract. It's like, there is no way I'm not going to have to make a very hard decision 7 years from now. That's exactly what happened. I had to finally give him up this year. and let him go, and it was like, I held on to him longer than I should have because I didn't want to let him go. And, and it was just, I had to make that commitment, and it wasn't like, oh, well, he sucks this year and then I just won't pick him next year,
Yeah.
It's very different. It's very different so, and I'm honestly, I don't remember, I honestly don't pay a lot of attention to who's on other teams that much. I pay a lot of attention when it's free agency or when there's a draft, but I'm sure you have guys like that on your team that you've really kind of bet the farm on,
Yeah. I mean, I had Kershaw. Kershaw was my big spend. Early, and then I think I traded him the year before his contract was. Oh, hang on. No, I think his contract's due to expire this year, but I think I traded him either last year or the year before just because it was so much money. It was like, I think it was sort of pushing up to $60 or something like that. So that's probably where, that secondary thought comes in. And, I sort of think back to when we started and, Trout going for $70 or whatever it was.
I think it was 80. He went for so much that if I remember correctly, whoever got him first got overbid for him so much that they didn't really have enough left.
Wasn't it Kyle? I reckon it was Kyle.
Whoever got him first had to get rid of him like a year or two later
because he just had no money left.
Jeez. That's one thing we've talked about maybe trying to address in our rules somehow with the way that the salaries escalate is because this idea of having a guy like Fernando Tatis Jr. come up and play for a year or two, it's like, okay, well, this guy's clearly a superstar, and then giving him a 14-year contract extension or whatever. Yeah, that wasn't a thing until the last couple of years. So, and now, or Mookie Betts was another one where he got they never get the best players never get to free agency. And then, so if you were fortunate enough to have picked that guy, you could basically have him for the whole best part of his career. And the way our salaries work at the end of that contract, 10 years from now or whatever, Fernando Tatis Jr. is only making $30 or 30.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though in real life he's making go ahead.
Part of me thinks that's your good fortune, if you outlay the draft pick on someone and if he's a good draft pick, it's $5. So
that's true. We changed that to make it a little tougher.
So we sort of I think we addressed that a little bit. Now 14-year contracts don't come along that often. So
right.
I guess I just look at it and I go, well, I mean, I've got no idea who owns Tatis at the moment, but good luck to them. It's just one of those things. And
well, you also remember what's going to happen if we end up expanding again.
Yeah, exactly.
That salary cap's going to go down by $60.
Yeah, I know. I'll be screwed.
The other thing I was going to bring up, so our salary cap when we had 16 teams was $400. Now it's 14 teams, $460, right?
Yeah.
So everybody, like the first, I don't know if you remember the initial auction from 2013. Uh-oh, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, okay. I just went to low power mode.
It's okay. And the first 20 or 25 players that were nominated was like all the stars of 2013. And basically they were all overbid on, not just Joey Votto, but also Trout and others. And everybody was being paid too much. Mike Fiers, who had just spent his first year in the big leagues and he was throwing 87, but he'd had a good year. So he was, and he was being paid like $23 or something, or he probably should have been making, $5. And so then a lot of those players ended up having to be cut later because everybody overbid. They got too excited they got flush with their $400 and they went to the casino and put down $90 on Mike Trout or $80 or whatever it was. And so then now people are much more conservative, even though the salary cap's actually higher. If we go back to 16 teams, which I really want us to do, I think that was a sweet spot. There are going to be some hard decisions made because you just lost $60 off your payroll. And, my payroll was very tight for a couple of years. Now it's a little bit looser now. I think you have kind of a tight payroll too, don't you?
Yeah, my payroll's, my theory of spending all the money
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with spending all your money. I mean, if you have $100 left over, you're not trying hard enough. I mean,
no, well, that's
you don't get to put it in your pocket and buy a yacht like, the owners of the Red Sox or whoever.
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah.
But, it's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to, I've talked about this with everybody else, like watching the expansion draft happen where it's like, okay, who am I going to lose, and whatever.
Yeah.
And the people who get to build those expansion teams from everybody else's unprotected list.
Yeah.
What happens then when everybody else has to figure out how to get down to $400 and some of these teams have stretched it all the way out?
I'm going to have to cut 3 of my catches.
Yeah, you've got a lot of catchers, haven't you? I think I remember asking you, like, Nathan, do you realize you've got like 5 or 6 catchers? And there's only, I mean, most leagues only have 1 spot for a catcher. We have 2.
We have 2.
And it's sometimes not always the greatest strategy to play both of your. I mean, catchers don't usually play. They usually, a good starting catcher plays 5 out of 7 days. Maybe.
Yeah.
And there's very few catchers that play every single game, right? So, you don't generally want to have both of those spots filled every single day. Sometimes.
I go for the volume aspect of it. I just figure if there's an empty spot there, I need to fill it. So
I understand.
Hopefully, and that's where hopefully having multiple catches gives me the opportunity. It's just a bit hard sometimes because games, if they're starting at 3 a.m, I don't know who's starting. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's right. You can't really go up to right before game time, can you?
Nah. I got to set my lineup the day before, or the evening before.
So in that sense, if I'm in that spot, if I'm you, then I kind of, I think I might try to do more of a limited of guys you can generally count on to be starting every day.
Yeah.
I mean, does that sometimes create problems with getting enough innings, for example, to qualify in a week?
No, because I think I just have that many pitches that I make sure. I make sure.
And again, pitchers don't. They don't usually. You don't have to wait to see. In advance.
A couple of days in advance who's throwing. So
I guess that's right.
That doesn't matter so much. And once again, I guess I'm not giving away any massive secret. I don't try and hit 50. I try and hit 70 if I can.
Yeah, me too.
Just go for the volume and
I mean, with pitching, right? With pitching, you can either try to get as many innings as possible and get more counting stats, or you can try to get a lower number of high quality innings. Yeah. With batting though, it's basically because there's only one negative stat, strikeouts. You generally want to get as many batting games played as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I lose strikeouts almost every single week.
Yeah.
I'm pushing. I try. I mean, I just miss because I have a job and 2 kids and a wife, and I can't always, I don't always remember to check my thing every day, honestly.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's with pitching, you could go either way. It's kind of, that kind of narrow window we have of where you got to have at least 50, but not more than 70 is kind of a, but we have a lot of people who don't make that innings minimum every week, and then they lose because of it. If you make 50 innings, you usually do
close enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, with hustle, even if your team is not that good, you can usually win half your games if you just pay attention every single day or almost every single day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I'm not as good this year as I was last year, so.
I think I'm sort of hanging around, but I'm not convinced that I'm going to challenge. I think there's probably a couple of teams that are much better than mine, but I think I might be second in our division, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, we don't have the super expanded playoffs that they have. I mean, the super expanded playoffs from last year I think that's coming back in the new CBA, but obviously they don't have them this year. They have the more limited playoffs, but in our league, we playoffs are for the, you can't squeak in by going 9-7 or whatever, or
that's
9-9, whatever. I'm trying to think how many games there are. 18, 20. How many weeks are there? 18. I don't remember.
Yeah, it might be 18 or 9. Yeah, it wouldn't be 19.
Something like that. Last year was different, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, and we had actually, it's funny, the team that is 0-12 right now, once Cincinnati went undefeated a couple of years ago, if you remember.
Yeah.
And then lost in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Kind of like the
that's cool.
Yeah, that's cold. Yeah, because just like in the real life playoffs, like last year, I definitely did not have the best team last year. I mean, I just played really well in the playoffs, and I managed to squeak it out. Like, I mean, it was, it was just one of those things.
Yeah.
It's not like, I know that's not happening this year. Like I've already lost like 4 or 5 weeks. It's not happening. So, but I just you get on a run. That's the way it is,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just need to get hot.
Yeah. And because our playoffs are happening at the end of the real life season, in September, September, you got teams that are out of it. A lot of times if a team's out of it, the star who's got an injury won't rush back, because there's not a lot to play for. Teams they're auditioning guys, for next year. They're not really. So there's a lot of randomness that happens at the end of the year. And meanwhile, we're in playoffs. They're trying to win. And it's very challenging. I think.
Yeah,
definitely. And there's a lot of luck involved. So, all right. Well, so what would you like to see? What would you like to see from our league? We'll wrap up with this one. What would you like to see? Is there any changes you'd like to see made, or anything new you'd like to see us do? Or
no, I'm interested to go back to for the expansion. Just I think,
God willing, it's happening.
Yeah, well, that's right. I think that would be interesting. I've sort of spoken to a couple of my mates here, but it just once you start explaining the intricacies of it, I think their eyes sort of glaze over a bit.
I have had this happen too. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's not for me. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it does get expanded. And then, for me, as I said, I'm not crusading to change a hell of a lot. Like I'm definitely, as I said, I think there are much smarter people than me who probably have been involved with leagues in the past or whatever, where things have worked differently, and they might look at it and say, well, no, I think it would be better to go this way or that way. And if they've got an explanation or an argument around why, well, I'm not going to, put up and say, well, I'm not going to be a traditionalist and say, well, this is the way it's always been. I think things have to change, and they have to move forward, or have to change to move forward in a way. So,
right. And you've had your success, haven't you won? Didn't you?
Yeah, I won. I think I won the third. I think I won the third year. So
that's right.
I've been blamed for the gift.
I was just going to bring that up. So the point is, you've had your success. We've had some teams that have had less success. I mean, considerably less. I'm not naming anybody than yours. So I mean, that's you've definitely you've done okay. You've done okay for yourself.
No, look, I think I'm pretty happy that I did manage to squeeze out one victory. Yeah. So and
I'm not that. I played fantasy football with my work, my coworkers for 8 years. I'm not doing it now. I finished second once, and out of the money the other 7 years. My other fantasy baseball league, I've played for I think 4 years. $150 a year. Okay, so there's some stakes there. Right. I finished second once the first year I played, and I haven't sniffed the prize money since. I mean, it's hard, and I don't know how. I mean, I have, what is it, three titles out of, I don't know how I got 3. Like, it just the one was incredibly lucky, and the first year it was just I call that luck too, because nobody really knew what made a good team in the first year. You know, I mean, it was just pick a name out of a hat. I don't know. I mean, I have a few things that I try to do consistently. You know, pick draft players closer to the majors. You know, pick relief pitchers off the scrap heap. You know, always set the lineup every day. There's just a few things that I can, you know, that seem like they at least keep you out of the basement. But
exactly.
There's no
mid-table obscurity is sort of where I tend to live. So
yeah, well, so I mean, you know, it's but you're right. It's such a heavy. You can be talking to someone who's a baseball fan and say, "Hey, listen, I got this league. This is pretty cool," you know. But then it's like, okay, well, you want to understand how it works? And it's like, oh, well, it's fantasy baseball, right? Well, yeah, but we need to have a conversation about how it works.
How to explain it,
and
because there's probably a couple of guys that I know that could fall into it and get sucked into it, but it's just sort of breaking through that initial.
I know.
Barrier. So,
you know, Drew, the latest person who I was able to recruit, I was able to recruit my brother, I guess. So I guess I've recruited two people.
You've done.
And you know, Drew had some time, and he was like, "Hey, you know, are you in a fantasy baseball league?" I was like, "I'm in a fantasy baseball league." And we talked on the phone where I explained the rules for like at least an hour. And it was, and I mean, and then later he was just like, wait, how does that? Okay, the salary goes up by $2. Okay, but you know, what happens when the guy bids on? Oh, okay. And I don't know. I just, you know, I have to know it backwards and forwards. That's why I try really hard to like, I kind of feel like I'm over explaining sometimes, because I don't want anybody to be confused, because as you can see, there's been a few times we have a couple of owners who get a little cantankerous when they accidentally miss something, or when they accidentally, it's like, wait a second, that guy's on waivers now, and now I'm going to, you know, and it's like, you know, he's going on waivers, just so you know, anybody can claim him. I mean, so I try, because I don't, it's not fun when people feel like they get screwed. So
you just don't want it to be, you don't want it
becomes my job. It's become my job since I became commissioner to like keep that from happening. It's like, are you sure you want to do that? Hey, I've even messaged people like, hey, you know, you really could use a catcher. Why don't you nominate, you know, whoever it is, Yerman Mercedes, somebody.
Talk to Nate. 5.
Can we please can you bid on, hey, there's a guy up right now, can you please bid on this guy? I don't mean to be that way, but it's just, you know, I don't know. I feel like it's my job.
No, shouldn't be your job, but
no, I don't mean that in a negative way.
No. Good that you're across it, and I know that I've occasionally gone to you and gone, what the hell's going on, you know, with whatever it is. So, and then, can I do this? So yes, you can. Okay, cool. No worries.
Right.
Thanks.
I try not to. Well, I try to only nudge. I mean, listen, it's just my opinion. Okay, like it's not, you know, player decisions are opinions, and you think you're making a good decision, but stuff doesn't work out. You know, this was popped up. There was the Baltimore Orioles just cut their catcher, Chance Sisco. So Chance Sisco was a pretty big prospect when he was in the minor leagues. From the time he was like 20 or 21 years old, you know, it's with the Orioles. He was going to be the catcher who's going to come up and he was going to hit 300 and he was going to play every day. And I mean, there's not a lot of catchers with that, you know, with a 60 bat, you know? So that's a pretty rare combination. So, you know, it's only slightly more common than a catcher who can run. So, you know, he comes up and he's a prospect, and he got traded around. He got picked up. I had him for a while. He had to have been traded at least 3 times in our league. And he was this prospect, and everybody was like, oh, he's going to be a good hitting catcher. He's going to hit for a high average. And, you know, the Orioles just designated for assignment because he's gotten parts of 3 or 4 seasons and he's just never hit. He's hit like 212 or something. I don't know what the exact number is. It's like 212. And they finally were like, you know, the clock's up, and, you know, you got to either keep the guy or, you know, designate him for assignment. And it's like, just goes to show everybody thought they were getting somebody each time, but no one actually got, I mean,
anything out of him.
Not really. And that happens a lot. And that happens, more often than it, I mean, honestly, that happens more often than a guy becomes a star,
Yeah.
There's not that many stars, and it's hard to stay a star once you are a star.
Such a game of failure. The whole thing is just a game.
You fail, the best hitters fail, 70% of the time or whatever. Or if you're Eugenio Suarez, it's a lot higher than that. Painful.
He has his moment.
I love that guy, but man, he is. Oh, geez. I'm afraid to look at his strikeout total. He struck out like 80 or 90 times this season already.
Try having Harvey, but I don't have him in this league.
Oh,
but I've got him in Harvey, but I think I think he's up to about. It's got to be more than 70 strikeouts, and I reckon he's got less than 10 walks.
Yeah. And that guy does amazing things. I talked about Javi Baez before with John, because John Javi Baez was his ticket into loving prospects.
Yes.
He talks about that. Javi Baez does amazing things that nobody else does on a baseball field, whether it's fooling the defense and stealing a run, or it's tagging people in all these crazy
I don't understand how he can swing like he swings and make contact. When he makes contact.
But he has this fatal flaw, and it's making consistent contact with the baseball.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. Well, listen, it is getting late for me. I know you're in the.
That's cool. Yeah.
But I got up at 5:30 this morning, my time. It's now 11 p.m. It's long.
Yeah, that's a long day, man.
So thank you to my kids for going to sleep and staying asleep. And not barging in. I'm sorry. I told my 4-year-old daughter she wasn't allowed to come in and say hi.
Oh, really?
Just because she has a tendency to not leave.
Yeah, right.
And she was tired anyway. She swam. My kids got to swim all afternoon. So, so I know things have been remarkably quiet on your end. I know you've got a family of your own, and it's loud. It's just I feel very fortunate. I have a house with an office that I work in, and it's but so. Anyway, I'm really glad we had this time to chat, and hopefully, I keep bringing it up. We're gonna do like a whole league happy hour at some point, maybe during the All-Star break or some other time.
Game? Which is in 2 weeks?
Is it? Yeah, I guess it is. Kyle's gonna be at the game because he lives in Denver.
Oh man!
So, which is, I mean, it's good they moved the game from Atlanta, because I don't think anybody in the league lives in Atlanta. So. But Kyle lives in Denver, and he's a massive Rockies fan, and they're going to have their contractually mandated one representative. So he's going to be. I'm not trying to be mean to the Rockies, but I mean,
no. They're not very good.
Well, he and I are going to discuss that. I want to hear how he would fix the Rockies. I can't wait to hear. He has some opinions. So, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do that. And, we'll see. I mean, it might be at a very inconvenient time for you.
No, I might still be on. I've got some time off at the moment, so I've got another 2 weeks off, so I might be off. So if I can, I will certainly jump on to say hello to everyone.
I mean, it'd be, let's see. Well, if the game is at 8 p.m., well, it would probably be on earlier because it'll be on Mountain Time.
9. It's usually on about 9 or 10 in the morning here, so it's not like a ridiculous time.
So it would be only about 12 hours instead of about 14. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if it were on at 8, it would be, it'd be early morning, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
So,
it's baseball. Yeah. If it's baseball,
it's important,
Yeah.
What else are you going to do with the time? Work?
Well, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So,
hey, before we go though, I just want to say thanks to you, mate. There's a lot of effort that goes into what you do to keep this thing afloat. So
obsessively updating spreadsheets.
Yeah. And I know you sort of do that.
It's what I do for a living, actually.
Yeah, so. That's right. And you seem to enjoy it. But I'm sure it's a pain in your ass at times as well. So, and that goes for, Kyle with the the draft thing and the lottery and all those sorts of things. Those people that are just doing those little bits, like it is appreciated from my end anyway. Like, I think it's bloody amazing that you guys can organize this stuff. So I'm, once again, I'm just so happy to be part of it. And it does probably consume more of my time than what it should, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's great. I really appreciate it. We should find you a little job. We should find you a little bit of a.
Oh no, I don't need a job.
Some kind of okay. No, I'm just talking about, like, hey, somebody to occasionally check the spreadsheets or check the, just like little things like that. I've been meaning to kind of delegate some of that and just like informal stuff, not.
For sure.
And just say, hey, I think this guy got, this guy shouldn't be on the spreadsheet. He's released, or, there's this thing about his being released. He's still here. I mean, occasionally people bring that up if it's their team, but usually nobody is impartially looking over, that kind of stuff. I've been meaning to take volunteers for some of that, because I'm an extreme perfectionist when it comes to this stuff, and I miss them. And I always kick myself, like, oh, I can't believe I forgot you cut Joey Lucchesi or whatever. I didn't actually forget they cut Joey Lucchesi, but that's just what came to mind. That kind of stuff, because I go on vacation sometimes, or I get busy with stuff, and
so. Exactly.
Oh well.
Now shoot me a message if you need something.
All right, I really appreciate it. So we'll wrap it up here, and we have, I think, if this is episode 7, episode 6 with Martine will be, well, it should be out by the time you see this one. So then we have 7 more. So I'm going to get to everybody. I don't think there's anybody that's going to turn me down outright, so that's good.
Wait, that's good.
I mean, how often do you get interviewed? I mean, let's accept Jordan from. Let's remove Jordan from this conversation, because this is what he does for a living. But everybody else, how often do you have somebody who you don't really know ask you questions just because they want to know your story? So
my partner probably thinks I'm crazy. Like I said, I've got to talk to that league from the US. Yeah. He looked at me silly, like, oh my god, really?
I always wanted to have a podcast, and so getting good at Zoom, getting trapped indoors for a year plus of the pandemic, I had the Zoom subscription that we got, and now honestly, this is the only reason now why I'm still paying $14.99 for it every month. So it won't be around forever. But anyway, all right. Have a good one. I'm going to check my score. Hopefully the game was just rained out and we don't even have to finish it. So
it's still a weather delay at the moment. So
God willing, I'll keep my fingers crossed for a rain out. So
all right, mate.
All right, have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Gotcha.